Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me on hashtag No Limits. I am your host, Shelly Kino, and hashtag No Limits is about people whose society has placed limits upon, but who are busting through those limits. Ophelia says in Hamlet, "We know what we are, but not what we will become." And I kind of switch that up a little bit and say, we know who we are, not what we will be, but same concept. And I believe 100% that there is no better example than the caterpillar turning into the butterfly. The caterpillar literally dissolves into its cells and then it reforms into the butterfly. And then it's not done. All that difficulty was not enough for it to be able to fly. It has to struggle to get out of the cocoon in order for its wings to be strong enough to fly and take it wherever it's going to soar to. I love doing hashtag no limits because I get to see so many people and they get to share their stories of how they or their loved one have soared after being a caterpillar. And today I'm very excited to have a return guest, my new friend. Well, she's not new friend anymore. She's been my friend now for a few years, but um, Lori Bell has an amazing story, and she finally chose to tell her own personal story. She is an author, and I'm going to let her kind of get into all of that stuff herself. But let me do one more little businessy thing here. If you're watching live, please make sure that you put a comment in, say, hey, where you're watching from, and that you're watching hashtag live. And if you're watching this in the replay, do the same thing, but say hashtag replay. And if you have any comments for Lori or myself, please put them in. I will pop them up on the screen. Lori or I can respond to them. And one final business thing, and I'll repeat this later. Lori has a new book out, which I'm sure is why most of you are joining me today. And we're going to talk about that book and how you can win an autographed copy of that book. So, Lori, all that blah stuff, thank you so much for joining me today again. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me back, old friend.
Now, wait, we don't have to say old.
Oh, okay. Long-time friend.
There we go. There we go. That's much better. That's much better. So since I kind of hinted at the fact that you have a wonderful story and you finally told your own personal story, give us a little background of all of your books, all of the things that you have done, and then kind of lead us into this new book that we're definitely focusing on today.
I began writing fiction in 2014 as an escape. It was just something I needed to do. I'm a writer anyway. I've always wanted to write one book. I knew that I had one book in me, and it just spiraled from there. I just have this local following that continued to want more. And as I said, it was my escape. So I wrote 4 books a year from then until now as this escape from my life and something for me, something outside of being a mom. And then I started to write these little blogs, I guess you could call them blogs, on Facebook about my life with my son and the reaction, the way that people could relate. Not even just for having a child or knowing someone with autism, but just having hardship. We all have it. I found that I was relatable, and it not only helped me, it helped others. So then I started to get, you're going to write a book about Connor? Are you going to write a book about Connor? And I always said no, because writing is my escape. And I said that for years. And then all of a sudden, I don't know what changed. I think we had breakfast together and you were mentioning, this could really help a lot of people. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to do it. If it has the same reaction as Facebook, it should be worth it. It was extremely therapeutic to write it. But that's just what happened. I wrote 37 fiction books, and then I decided to write my story. And a few people have said it's my best one yet. So I don't know if that's good or bad.
Well, I think, and I have 2 copies here. I have my own copy, and then I have the copy. So I've taken notes in my own copy because I wanted to talk to you about some of the things that you wrote. But so this is the book, in case anyone isn't aware. So it's Bear With Me by Lori Bell, A Family's Journey with Autism. And I honestly, this is probably going to sound really awful, but as an author myself, I've kind of stopped reading books because I definitely stopped. I mean, I didn't read any the entire time I wrote my book because I didn't want to be influenced by, someone else's writing or someone else's story. And so I got out of the habit of reading when I was writing my own book. And then when I got your book, it was like 2 or 3 evenings and I was through the whole thing. Um, and then I went back because, as I said, I knew you were coming on. And so I wanted to take some notes and make sure that, we talked about some different things. So tell me, while I'm kind of looking through for some of my notes, some of the people that have reached out to you since you have released, it's kind of a memoir, but kind of not, and tell some of their stories of how that you have helped them.
When you get a book and you read quotes from different publishers or even, readers on it and what they have to say about it. I'm a former reporter, so I compiled some of those quotes that people have sent me about my book. So I've got it over here. I'm just going to read a couple if that's what you want
Okay.
to come for.
Yeah, please.
There was a special education teacher from Arkansas, and she said, "Your words help me see our kids at my school through different eyes. They are all someone's everything, and we need to remind ourselves of that."
Mm,
Yeah, she said, as teachers, we get caught up in the data and the goals, and we completely miss the incredible child in front of us. And I thought that was so powerful because, we send our kids to school and we want them to be loved and understood.
right.
And so there's that. And then there was a mother-in-law of one of my closest friends. She said about me, she probably doesn't even realize how many people were inspired to be a little stronger after reading this book. And
Wow.
that's another thing. I'm like, again, it doesn't have to be autism related for someone to understand and just, feel. So
Right.
those are just a couple, that I would get like, thank you for sharing Bear and things like that. So, but it's just, it's inspiring to me. So, I didn't waste my time.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of why I encouraged you, because I knew there would be multiple people who would be inspired, encouraged, and grow in their own journey because of your story. Um, I had the great privilege of teaching so many families over the years and getting to know those families and feeling like I had insight into what it was like being in a family like yours on a daily basis. And then when I did my own book, realized, oh my gosh, no, I really did not have even a thimbleful of knowledge of what it is like every single day. And one of the statements that you say, and it's your start to chapter 22, is there is no break. Autism is all day, every day. Um, can you can you expound on that a little bit? I mean, I think I know what that means, obviously, but give some examples if you don't mind.
Well, for me, I mean, he is my entire day. I've never set an alarm in the last 18 years. He is up by 4 a.m. and my day starts the same every day. I'm not one that sits around and sips a cup of coffee. I mean, I hit the ground running with him. There's meeting his needs and getting him settled and following his routine. And I feel like that's all day long. He and I have developed a routine together. Some things, need to be done on my end, and I'm meeting his needs, weaving in and out of our entire day. If he's in school, that's my time to, get things done when I can, when he's not here. And that's usually physically running errands and things because he doesn't do well in public. But it's all day, every day. It's 24/7. It's when you go to sleep at night, you're sleeping with one ear open just in case. It's like when you have a baby, he can't, you just have to listen and you always have to be ready.
Yeah.
A
And
very good sleeper. So I'm not going to complain about that. But it's still that feeling.
right. And I don't think those of us who don't have someone who needs that kind of attention really can grasp that. I mean, it seriously permeates every second of your day. I mean, like even now, okay, he's at school and you and I are having this conversation, but you also have, what are we going to do when we get home today? Am I going to get a phone call in the middle of this? What's going on with him at school? I mean, tell me, am I on the right track? Am I?
Oh, it's constant. My phone is on silent right now, but I'm thinking just give me 1 hour. They usually don't reach out too often, but I've been in the dentist chair. We've talked about this before. It's just you just never know. So yeah, he's constantly on my mind.
Yeah. And I didn't get that. I mean, as a teacher, my students were on my mind, and I said constantly, but I don't think I meant that literally. It felt like I meant it literally, but in comparison to you, or millions of parents around the world, it wasn't literal. You truly, I mean, it is every second of every day, for as long as you are here, or as long as the person that you're giving the care to is here. Um, there's a lot of cute little stories that you shared. And my humor is a little bit strange sometimes. So
We have
maybe
strange
the things
humor
that,
too.
yeah, so maybe the things that I find kind of funny, may not necessarily. But you had this one where you were in a drive-through, and he was watching his DVD player of the show Drake and Josh, and you just get up to the speaker, and they ask you what they can do for you, and from the back seat he blurts out, "Ow, did you just hit me?" I mean, it's not funny, but
Oh,
it's
it
funny.
is funny. It is funny, and that's how I wrote it. And it's meant to laugh at, because the kid is really considered to be nonverbal, and then the things that he says sometimes at the wrong times. And in this society, I'm lucky I didn't have DCFS, behind me. But I'm
Right.
just saying, people over here. And yeah, he's just a piece of work, and you have to laugh. And when I laugh, then he's happier. He likes to get that laugh. And then he's like, "What's so funny?" I'm like, "You're funny." So it's just, the what we do. It's
Yeah.
funny, believe me. And I don't try to like hide my laughter, not with him. It's, even if he's cussing, I don't hide it. And he thinks that's funny. And I don't parent that way with him, because it's not going to matter. But yeah,
Right.
I'm always laughing. So that is funny. You're allowed to laugh at that.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
And then this one was just a few paragraphs behind. It said, he was with a teacher, and she would always give him a few minutes to calm down before they walked inside to go to the classroom. And she one time asked him if he was ready to join everyone, and with a serious face he looked up and said, "No, I'm fine."
Mhm.
And
And he was little then, and it was in context. So yeah,
right.
he can do it, and he's funny with it. He definitely gets his humor from me. Let's just get that straight.
Well, and sometimes as a teacher, and possibly as an adult looking on at a situation like that, that would be taken as disrespectful, because it would be looked at as the child talking back to the adult, because in the in the adult's mind, they weren't really posing it as a question, even though it was said as a question. It really wasn't like, you have a choice in this. It was like, I'm trying to be friendly. And so when somebody responds like he did in that situation, onlookers, and honestly, sometimes adults have taken those kinds of things, in my experience at least, as being disrespectful. Have you had experiences? Has anyone ever said anything to you?
No, especially in the special needs world that I've been through with him, they just know. And I think, considering that he's so anxious and he does not give them words, they'll take anything.
Mhm.
So when he does talk like that in context, and it is funny, and they laugh. So, and again, if you laugh with him, he's more comfortable. And they found that early on to work. So no, I've never felt that way. I mean, and sometimes the words that he'll say, I'm like, "Oh well, at least he's talking," and then they're like, "We agree."
Yeah. And that is such a valid point. He's talking. Again, my daughter, she was delayed verbally until about 18 months or so. I remember taking her in, and I was going through special education classes at the time, and I was like, "Oh, she's not talking as much as she should be," having all the things going through my head from the classes. And so we took her, and they said, "Yeah, she's a little bit delayed, but she'll be okay." And then, you know, I don't know, it wasn't longer later, and she started rambling, and she hasn't stopped. And and I
Good.
and I sometimes, I forget, and I take that for granted, that she can tell me when she's not feeling well. She can tell me when something is bothering her. And you don't necessarily have that.
No, I have to read his mind so many times. But what you said there was, early on, you were told, developmental delay, she'll be okay. I heard that more than enough. And I've hung on to that. But, that never happened for me and just never came. But they have to say that early on because they don't know either.
Right. Yeah. And what you said, and this was another point that I had marked in my book, is there's so much shorthand between you and him. Facial expressions, gestures, one word that's supposed to be translated into an entire phrase. Again, I don't like I thought I understood those things because of some of the students that I had were nonverbal or paraverbal, and so I did learn to read a lot of their body language and signs and gesture, the sounds and the gestures. Um, but it's every second of every day for you. And do you ever feel that when you're having a conversation with him, other people look at you and maybe you feel like they're looking at you and thinking, we're not really having a conversation? Or has someone ever said that to you, like anything about how you converse with him?
The only time I've ever been watched like that is like the pickup at school, to get him to make that transition, which is extremely difficult. He asked to go home all morning. When I get there, he cannot transition from his individual care aide to me, not in an easy way. So they hear me and they hear the words that I use, and I don't want to say the conversation we have because he's really not talking at that point. But I mean, I'm a drill sergeant sometime, and I've told them, look, half the time I don't mean this, and I don't want to look stern, but I'm a mom, and that's how I get his reaction. So last year we had an individual care aide that fed off of that, and she goes, I'm using that, and she did. She treated him like I do to get him to do things. They were close, but he also answered to her, and it worked. So not a lot of people hear us talk, but the ones that have are like, oh, because we just have our own way.
Right. Your mom is watching, in case you missed
Oh,
that.
hello, Mom.
And we also have Fran and Kelly and Karen and Mary Lee. They all popped in, and I've put their good mornings up. I appreciate you all joining us today. I see that there are many others watching, so if you would want to do the same thing, that would be awesome. Because what happens, honestly, it's as much for Lori and I, but also it's for the algorithm. So if you want Lori's story out there, the more comments that this receives, the more the algorithm goes, oh, people are interested in this, and they throw it out there. So the lovely algorithm is a whole thing, but um, liking it, loving it, sharing it, all those kinds of things. And speaking of sharing, I'm just going to pause here for a second and talk about how somebody can get an autographed copy of your book through me. You have donated this book to me. And so the way to do that is to subscribe to subscribe to the YouTube channel and then share it either on here or on Facebook, this episode, and then comment on this thread. So many of you already have a start, and I'm guessing Mom especially already has a copy of the book. But if Mom were to win the book, she could donate it to somebody. But yeah, anybody else, if this will make a great book for teachers. This, again, as the teacher from Arkansas said, it gives that perspective that as educators, we don't necessarily think about. And I've had similar comments to the one from Arkansas about my book. And that to me is incredible, because then we're not just reaching one person, we're reaching all the students that they teach.
Right.
And helping them see people differently, in a positive light. So one of the things that we haven't touched on yet is that you say that he gets worn out from his routine, the day, going to school, the transition back and forth, and you say that what he doesn't know is sometimes I feel as worn out as he does. So when you said that, like, can you elaborate a little bit about that?
He leaves at 7 in the morning by bus, and he gets to school by 8:30. So he's on the bus a while.
Yeah.
And I pick him up by 12:30 every day. It's part-time school, and it's a lot of rushing around and grabbing him and getting back into our routine. But those few hours do wonders for me. He just had 5 days off for Thanksgiving. He'll have 2 weeks off for Christmas. He has an entire summer off since COVID. He doesn't go to summer school. I feel that after a few days in a row, after a week in a row, it's draining. And sometimes I say, I need a minute. And I think that's what I meant by that. Because as soon as I get my minute, I'm ready to go again. Where is he? What's he doing? I'm only human. And it's just that feeling sometimes, I get it. I'm just as tired of this as you are, but he's got to be more tired of it because he's the one that's, dealing with it. He's the one that can't communicate. I said to him the other day, I said, what is wrong? Because something was wrong. And he said, what is wrong? Right back.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't say what. And I'm like, okay, I didn't get anywhere with that. But it's just, sometimes he's like us. He needs a minute as well. But yeah, we all get worn out. There was a quote from a mom that I skipped over. She said, I needed to read this book. I know it will help me at the end of the day when I still cry myself to sleep because I can never show my child that I'm tired, hurting, and upset.
Hmm.
And then she does not have a child with autism. She has a child
Wow.
with physical needs. So it's like, when I wrote about when I speak about how I feel, when I write about how I feel, somebody else out there gets it. And it doesn't have to be autism related. It's just life related. So,
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know if you saw this from Lori Selman. Loved working with the bear, and my husband misses working with him to this day.
we miss Cameron too.
So you said you have a local following, but Arkansas is not local to you. So have do you feel that you have heard from people that you didn't know were aware of you before?
Yeah, Facebook Messenger, you can get messages from people anywhere. I've heard about your book from so and so or whatever. So yeah, this more than any book, I've gotten a lot of messages from all over. And again, it's for sale on Amazon, so it's not like they had to get the book through me. So many people do locally though. I have a huge local following, and I have the books at a local library. So I know without my local people, I couldn't do this. But once in a while, it branches out, and it's kind of exciting.
Yeah. So Jerry says, Jeannie and Jerry here, Lori's babysitter and our daughter's best friend who grew up together. Love from both of us. This is really awesome.
Oh, they're really awesome.
And we appreciate everyone who's joining. And I appreciate, like I said, the comments. And this will help Lori's story and Bear's story get out there. And so let's talk about that. I just referred to him as Bear.
Mhm.
And I know you say it in the book, but why do you call him Bear?
Well, very early on, we were told, oh, he's colicky. Everything, he was just a little bear. He was upset about, everything day and night. And, that was in the back of my mind, but I was reading Three Little Bears to Bailey. And I don't even know if it was the actual original book, but it stated in there, um, the little bear was always hungry. And I just finished that sentence when I was reading Just Like Connor Bear. And then Bailey giggled because she was only 2. And I'm like, that stuck. That really did. That There's something about that sticks with me. And that's what we're going to call this kid. And we did from the beginning. He's such a bear. Or come on, Connor Bear. And then in school, people giggled about it. And it's like, yeah, he was a little bear today. So it's just been 18 years of dealing with the bear.
Yeah.
And that's
And
why when I wanted to title this book, I didn't know what I don't know. Do I want to put something with bear? I don't know. Is that cheesy? Do people really know? And one of my closest friends was like, bear with me. And I said, yeah, we've been bearing with this kid since the beginning of time. So there's that. And I think I said that the last time too, but I just love the title.
yeah, I think it's a perfect title. One of the things, and I have a lot of notes on these 2 pages here. One of the things that you said, and again, I don't think that many outside of a family like yours really glean on to this fact that, and I say this from a teacher's perspective, and I try to tell my teachers this when I do teachers training. When we go into the IEP meetings, we chose to be teachers. Our parents didn't choose that role necessarily. And that's what you say is, I didn't want to do this forever. I never signed up for this. Yet here I am. There's no finish line, no end point. I look at this though, as I don't have a choice. It's all or nothing. I've chosen to give this boy everything I've got. And that to me is so powerful. and profound, because again, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, it truly, it permeates every cell of your body, and it's every second of your thinking. And I don't think we get that. Do you feel that you have received comments from people about that exact thing, or have you had experiences where people have expressed like, I don't get it, like I can't grasp how big that is?
I think until I started to share the little tidbits on Facebook, I don't think anybody understood. I think that helps people understand, but if you don't live it, you don't get it. You don't completely get it. And it might just be who I am, but I'm going to give it 110%. And part of it is because he's still so very much my baby. You know, I don't see reasons to say, "Yep, you're gonna be independent, you know, go on, you can nope, you can do it yourself." I just know what he's capable of. And, you know, we've never turned our backs on our babies, you know, at that needy stage. I still have that needy stage with him. Um, and I can remember when I finally, maybe should I say, accepted this, I was like, "Look, I'm gonna bargain with God. You gave me this child. I will give this 110%, but you have to let me live forever because
Mhm.
I don't want anyone else to have to take care of him." I mean, he's expecting me. I just, that's just how I feel. So I'm holding up my end of the bargain.
Well, and Fran says from the moment her son was born, she's been planning for his future without me.
She's
And
brave.
I, and her son doesn't have autism. I think that's her daughter that has autism. Her son has Down syndrome. I know that. And so again, not the same, but the same. And it that that leaves me almost speechless to think about that. I had several families in my own book that talked about that. That, and I think it's a saying that I've heard from multiple moms of children who learn differently, that they just want to live one day longer than their child.
I had a friend who had a daughter with special needs. She doesn't live around here anymore, but one of the first things she said to me, she actually helped take care of Connor at one of the schools very early on. She said, "You are going to think about death." She goes, "More than the average mom, for yourself, for your child." And she's right. You do. It's just who we are.
Yeah, and I'm empathizing, but as you just said, unless you're walking in it, you really don't understand it. And I've tried to choose those words carefully, since interviewing my families for my book. Of, I don't understand. I empathize, but I don't understand because I've not been there. I've not done that.
But there
Um,
might be something you're going through that I don't understand. You know, we
right,
all have our own hardship and pain. We try to sympathize, but until we do something, we're not going to 100% understand it. And
right,
that's fine with me. I don't expect people to be like, "I get it," because they're not going to.
right. And even if it's another family with autism,
It's still not the same
it's
sometimes.
still not the same thing. No. So Mary says, "You're remarkable. No one knows what she really does every single day. Many people could not do the amazing job she does. She will never give up."
Thank you,
And
Mary.
Karen says, "Amen. Anxiety is so high on what happens when we're gone." How do you deal with that? Or don't you? Do you just not think about it?
Well, see, part of it is I dwell and I plan ahead, but there's certain things that you just have to say, "No, I'm not. I'm not going to worry about this." Um, Like, I don't plan for what's going to happen when I'm not here. And I don't know if that's because I feel reassured that everything's going to be okay one way or the other. I just cannot live in fear or worry. I mean, if I'm consumed with anything, Connor feeds off of that. But like when I write about it, it really comes out how I feel and, my fears. But day to day, I no longer worry about it. It's in the back of my mind, but it's not forefront and consuming me.
That's good. So I want to continue down that line. You said earlier that it was kind of cathartic for you to write this, and you just kind of mentioned it now, how much more you talked about it when you wrote about your own story. And so talk about that, how this process has been different for you than writing the 37 previous books.
Well, for one, when I began writing this, it started with, pulling a few tidbits from Facebook and, the funny stuff and the just the memories that way, which I was really glad I did that early on. And then I got into, okay, wow, this is how I felt at that 5-month appointment when he was on the exam table. And I was hoping the pediatrician would not see how he couldn't sit up. And you're gonna think, "What?" Well, I was so worried that she was going to find something instead of maybe the next visit he'll sit up and we'll all move forward. She did find out then that he couldn't sit up independently, that he was throwing himself back, and that's when we started all the therapy and such. But, what was your initial question? I got lost in that moment. Oh, just diving in and getting the
Right.
feelings back. Some things I was okay with, and some things I walked away. I gave it 2 or 3 days before I went back. I would ask my husband, I would be like, "Okay, do you remember this?" And he's like, "Oh, I don't remember that at all." I'm like, "Okay." But I'm like, "I do." And I think I maybe even wrote some notes on that. And I even went to the doctor's office and got some files just to see where we were at certain stages. But it was a lot. I remember at the end of chapter 11, I walked away and Bailey had just gotten home with her friend and they're like, "What's the matter?" And I said, "I'm either going to throw up or I'm going to cry." I said, "I got to walk away from this." I said, "Read chapter 11." And they're both like, "Oh." But, you just get so consumed with and you think to yourself, or at least I did, I made it. That's the past. I'm through that. But
Right.
I lived that and it was not easy to write the book, but in the end, like I said, it was therapeutic, and knowing that it's helped others, just the few that have reached out to me, that's enough. That's enough. It was all worth it.
Yeah. That's wonderful. So now I had to go to chapter 11
I
and
know, but don't talk about it.
yeah. Well, and actually the first paragraph talks about what we were just talking about. You not wanting him to be alone and what lies
Okay,
ahead and not
okay.
thinking about that. Um okay, so I won't talk about that. I love that you share pictures. That
Yeah, I want people to see what I'm talking about.
yeah,
Not just get a visual, actually see.
right. Yeah, exactly. They're so normally, so you said you put 4 books out a year, so that takes you about 3 months to write a book. Um, was that time frame different for this one, or was it approximately the same?
I wrote it in 19 days.
Wow.
So, now remember, I had some things to pull, like from notes and Facebook and such, but yeah, I think it was just a matter of I'm on a roll, I don't wanna keep remembering things, I don't wanna step away too long, and it was summer, so I had even when Connor's here, I still have more time, my mind is clearer, I can focus, instead of I gotta leave in a half hour, or what if they call me? I don't know, it came together very quickly, and then I said, "Is this it? Do I need to go back? Is there anything else I have to add?" And my neighbor approved it for me, and she's like, "What about this? And what about that?" So I added a few things after that. She's like, "I've always been curious about the swimming." So then I added, that he taught himself how to swim, which
Which
I'm
is incredible.
it is because he does not know how to teach himself how to do much of anything. So the one thing, his love of water, I mean, bound and determined, he taught himself how to swim.
Yeah, and I remember that section where you were talking about, that he always had the swim vest on and how
Mhm.
that swim vest definitely gave you its money's worth.
Oh gosh, yes. I mean, he was just over the weight limit and just we couldn't fasten it. So then Mike actually sewed, extensions into it. We can make this work. And again, it was more of a security than anything. It wasn't keeping him up, but yet it was keeping him up enough where if he'd go under, he got the full effect of, okay, I'm controlling this a little, but I'm safe.
Yeah. And for someone like me who is scared, I mean, that's my biggest fear is drowning, and I don't know how to swim, and there's a whole story that goes with that. That to me, the fact that he taught himself, that
Mhm.
he had enough trust, I guess, in the vest and in the water, and then eventually in himself.
In himself, yes, because he does not have confidence. So, yeah, that was remarkable. It really was. Because, like you said, it's hard. Some people don't know how to swim, they fear it, and he is afraid of everything. So, to see that, that process, it was pretty amazing.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I'm glad that, that you put that in there, because that is probably something that people who know you, at least, would be curious about. What sort of response have you gotten, or have you gotten any response from the local school district where you talked about some of the difficulties that you had in the beginning?
Zero response other than people saying, "Oh, I know who you were talking about." I know, exactly, and they've had their own experiences. So, this particular person, we live in a small town and everyone knows everyone, so here I go. But it's just a matter of I made a change. It took years and years of people going through this, and it took one person to finally say, "I'm done with this, I wanna change."
Yeah,
So, and that's the first time I felt like an advocate. I wasn't gonna be an advocate, and my child was gonna be fine. We're gonna move forward. Just get me out of the special needs classroom and we'll be okay. And then all of a sudden it's like, "Okay, I'm fighting for him." And it worked. So then that gave me a little bit of a boost of confidence that this is gonna be the rest of his life. I have to speak up for him. I have to when I can't be there, he has to be protected. And I
right.
still have that fear right now, today. Is he okay? Is he safe? So, yeah,
Yeah,
so not a lot has been said about that. Does she know that I have a book out? I don't know. About this experience, it's the truth. That's all I can say. It's what happened to my child.
right. And I kind of wonder that sometimes about people that are in my book too. I mean, I'm anonymous as far as, who the families are, but I do wonder if people haven't figured out some of the stuff.
Oh,
Um,
they have. I mean, we're from Clinton County. They have.
I mean, I'll be honest. I have someone who has two people in the book. She's related to two different people in the book, and she read the one chapter and she figured that one out, but the other one she didn't associate as being her relative. So,
Oh, okay. So
so
you
I'm
did
like,
that
well,
very well. Okay.
maybe I did okay anonymously keeping it.
Well, I mean, when I wrote it, I said, "I'm not here to bash anyone. I'm just
Right,
here to tell the story of, what's happened." I don't know what happens in those classrooms,
right.
with my son, and in that time I did.
Right. And that's just, yeah, I mean, my book is all from the parent's perspective, just like your book is. And so, what an individual thinks, that's talked about in the book, or what a medical professional or a teacher or whatever, that is talked about from the parent's perspective, their story is different. They
Right.
can write their own story, is how I've kind of justified it, like, this is, everyone has their own perspective, and no one's perspective is wrong necessarily. It's how they perceived the situation at the time. And speaking of that, and again, what you just said about, you have to trust people. I don't honestly know how you do that.
I
I
think
mean,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
well, just the fact that, the families that I know, I mean, I know I'm trustworthy, but how do you know that? How do you know that when you're sending your child to school, that, their teacher that year, all the people that are going to interact with your child are trustworthy? I mean, is it something you really have to work at, or does it just at a certain point you just go, okay, it is what it is?
It's something I've experienced more good than bad with, so I have to hold on to. We've had so many angels cross our path, and I just hope for more each year when change comes. And if I don't have one, I do everything I can to make a change. Um, but I still, like I said, this he's 18, and I still have that feeling of I just don't know. I mean, are we having a good school year? It's okay. Have we had better? Yeah. It's hard. It's not something that, I say I've got this, because I don't. I have moments of, wow, okay, so and so said this and he did that. And wow, I saw those two together as I was walking up the schoolyard, and I just got some reassurance. Last year I saw the individual care aide swinging with him, and he didn't see me, and that was like major reassurance. This is okay. He's not anxious. He's not 10 feet away from her. He's right by her, and he's having a good time. When they send pictures, that's always the reassurance. Oh, look, he's happy. He's not full of anxiety and wanting to go home. Um, it's not anything that I've mastered. I probably have it my entire life, especially while he's in school.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that definitely, um And Fran just, I put it up here a second ago, and I don't know if you saw it. I took it down, but she said that advocacy is a privilege, not a burden. And you spoke to that a little bit. You said one of two things happen when you become a voice for your child who cannot speak for himself. You're either respected or you're criticized. Do it anyway. Do what you feel is best in your heart. So, I mean, we talked a few minutes ago about the one person that ended up being let go from her position because of you speaking up. What sort of reactions outside of that one have you? What's been your norm? I think you said pretty good, but maybe not.
Yeah, it's been pretty good. The thing with that comment is I've never been afraid to speak up. And there's been some that are like, whoa, she's bold. And I'm called, different names. And there's others that admire that. Wow, I don't think I could have ever said that. But I always do because he cannot speak for himself. So from the very beginning, this day one of each school year, I make myself known. I'm present for a meeting, and this is what you can expect from my child, and this is what you can expect from me. I find that if you're forefront and you're honest, then they will be too. There's no need to keep things from me. If he's had a bad day, I want to know about it. If I just feel like if you show your personality, and mine is always like, listen, what you see is what you get. What I say is what I mean. They feel more comfortable right away. I wanted to call you about this because then the awkward is out of the way, I guess.
Right. And I always appreciated that with the parents that I worked with. If I knew that they didn't want I was probably an oversharer with my students' parents at the beginning because I did want them to know every little thing. And then I found out not every parent wanted that. But then there were others who even the amount I was giving them wasn't enough.
Mm-hmm.
And so, having to find that balance as an educator of, okay, I think every little thing this child is doing needs to be told to the parents, but they don't necessarily want or need to know that in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I was often scolded by administrators because once I had my own cell phone and, I could text parents, I was texting them. And administrators don't like it when you use your own personal devices because they can't protect their teachers then.
Right.
First of all, I mean, that's their main thing is like, if you say something and it's misconstrued, we can't protect you because it's on your own device. But I mean, then I had other parents who they would speak about that often. Like, we were so thankful for the amount of knowledge that you gave us because we did feel then more confident and more comfortable. And so I think it's fantastic that you would let the school team know at the forefront, look, I want to know these things. I know he's not perfect and I don't expect him. He's not perfect at home and I don't expect him to be perfect here. And I want to know because what's happening at school is going to help me figure out what's going on with him when we get home.
Right. And I like that communication. I like those texts and those pictures, but I get it. It doesn't have to be every 10 minutes, but it's reassurance. It's always been.
Right. I can't find it now quickly. I should have put some little sticky notes. One of the things that you kind of said, and I was talking with another parent whose child has autism, and you alluded to the same fact that when they hit a milestone, the fear is like it's a dual-edged sword because you're like, well, I'm so excited that they did this, but then there's this fear of, is that the last one? Is that
Early on, I was ready for the next one. I was working hard for the next one. I'm like, he's got this. He started walking when he was 18 months old. But I was like, okay, we mastered it. Let's keep moving. And then I don't remember the point where I thought he's plateaued. He has plateaued. This is it. And even to this day, there'll be little things and I'll be like, oh, wow, okay. But I know not to expect too much more. And that to me was my point of acceptance. It's like, stop fighting, stop, for something that he can't do that you might not ever get. Surprise me. I used to say, Connor, if you can do it, surprise me. I'm exhausted trying. And sometimes that was the best way and I mentioned that in my book, we quit all therapy and I saw advancement after that, on his own terms, less pressure, less anxiety, look at him go. And then again, there were years of that. And then it was like, okay, I'm done. This is what you get. So
Yeah. Yeah. I thank you for sharing that, because I can only fathom that, extremely sorry, I just saw
I
this
just
and
saw it. I
lost
don't know
my
why my eyes are watering.
and I'm glad that she commented, because somehow she must have known that she was going to be the next person I was going to ask you about. Um, because the fact that you shared, you know, and I would love, Bailey, since you're listening, I would love to have you come on and share, what kind of, similarly to what your mom is doing, because I don't get a lot of siblings who come on and share. And I would love for her to tell her perspective of Connor and growing up with him and how it's affected her life. It's hard to know, I'm sure, from her viewpoint, how he's affected her life, because you didn't know life as a sister without him. So you don't know
I
what you
always
would have.
say that he formed her into the person that she is. So yeah, she doesn't know life without that. That
Yeah.
feeling of just being compassionate and a caregiver. So, oh, she would probably talk your ear off.
Well, I would love to have her, like I had posted up there before. Anyone who's listening, I know that there are several parents that I have recognized who have children who learn differently. I would love to share your stories in this same exact platform. So please reach out to me if you would be willing to do that. Because I feel, as I mentioned before, not just sharing Lori's story, but sharing all the stories on hashtag no limits, because it is changing people's perspectives. I have had people reach out to me and say things like, I didn't know that that was possible, or I never thought about things that way. And that's one of the main reasons I have my guests and I do this show, is because I want people to see the positives and empathize with the not so positives. I hate to call them negatives, but I guess that's truly what they are. And the fact that you wrote your book, after we talked, and that inspired you, and so now so many more people, because of your circle of people that read your stuff, are learning and seeing a different perspective. That's I love that. That's so. If anybody's listening, Bailey specifically, but if anyone else is listening, I would love to share your story as well. And I think Lori will tell you it's fairly painless. Um,
Barely.
I mean, yeah, you are bearing your soul, so but only as much as you feel comfortable. But I did want to talk about that, the fact that you do talk about your husband, and he doesn't obviously take up much of the book, because the book is about you and Connor, but you do share that he has a different approach, to parenting and to parenting. Thank you, Fran. She's saying that it has a powerful and positive impact on many. Um, so obviously he's probably not going to share, but again, like all of you could come on and share your perspectives of what it's been like. But I appreciate that you put some things in your book about him. Do you want to talk about him a little bit?
I think when I started again to share quite a bit on Facebook, I share all of us. The curiosity was piqued. What's your husband like with him? And even I would even show they would be on bikes or whatever. And then a couple of times the question came, how do you guys make this work? And there's statistics out there, 75% or maybe it's even 80 now of marriages with children with special needs in the mix, they fail. So I gave quite a bit of background on maybe in a chapter or two, and that was part of chapter 11, how we handle being different from each other, how we handle Connor because of that, we parent him differently. Mike is the fun dad, and I'm the drill sergeant because I have him most of the time. When Mike is off work, Connor knows that they're going to do something fun. And if something serious is going on, if a decision needs to be made school wise, I get the question, so what are you going to do? And I'm like, well, first we need to talk about this, but what do you want me to do? What do you think is right? And many times the ball is in my court. It really is. He's in the background. He does the fun stuff, the important stuff. He has, he's the breadwinner here, so I can do this. But yeah, he and Connor feeds off of how relaxed he is. I'm the uptight one. So it's good for Connor to just spend time with each of us and all of us together. And Bailey is an even mix of my husband and myself. She's just, she's not as uptight and yet she's not as patient. She's right in the middle. But she gets Connor to do many things that neither of us can as parents. But I thought it was important to just explain him a little bit and explain the way that he's able to reach Connor differently and how we've made this work, because there's a lot of day-to-day stress and I have him a lot more than he does. So there's that.
And I mean, other than Jerry, I think everybody watching, or at least that's commenting, I shouldn't say watching, is female. And in my experience, I mean, even on hashtag no limits, your episode 155, and not all of those were parents, but I mean, I would say I've maybe had a handful of dads. And it is usually that it falls more on mom's shoulders naturally, I don't know, if it's dictated out, or if it's just because that's our role. I mean, we tend to, as moms, be more of a caregiving type of role. And I so appreciate that you acknowledge that it's difficult, but that your roles are the way they are, and that both of you and both of your roles are very needed by Connor. You couldn't both be the fun parent. You both couldn't be the disciplinarian, and the stricter one. And it takes, my heart goes out to those parents who are doing it alone. I follow the autism dad, and he has 3 children that all have autism, and he that it's tough. I mean, I don't understand it because I've not walked it, but the empathy that I have of any single parent, honestly. But when you add the addition of a child who learns differently, or multiple children who learn differently, that that's just heartbreaking for the parent and for the child, I think. And so I'm so happy that you recognize and acknowledge that, if it wasn't for Mike, you would have to be out working.
Yeah, I couldn't do this alone. I mean, I wouldn't be able to give Connor that 110%. I definitely wouldn't. So, I mean, this works out obviously for a reason. He was placed with us and our personalities were, meant to be together. Yeah, I don't know what I would do without him. I mean, as far as even, hey, take him for a bike ride or get in the camper van and go to Carlisle for the day with him, just that gives me some freedom and some time to breathe, and it also gives them a chance to bond and do things that, Connor doesn't do with me.
Right.
I mean, just like things that Connor will do with me, sometimes in any household, you'll hear a dad say, I don't know, mom knows how to do that. Ask mom. That's the same here. And then there's things that's like, oh, he does that with dad, go ask dad. So, it's a two-way street that way. It's not that I do everything in that regard. I need him to take Connor and do things that I don't want to do with him or that he won't do with me.
Yeah. And I so appreciate the fun things that, you shared that Mike came up with, like the fact that it was his idea to add the straps to the swim vest.
Yeah, he
Or,
is a thinker, and he's always like, I'm not living the rest of my life like this. We're going to find ways to do things. I don't care how we do it, but we're going to do things. And again, yeah, he has that type of mind. He's a thinker. How can we make this, to fit Connor's needs?
yeah, I love that. I'm so thankful for the snippets that you shared about Bailey, because I've heard oftentimes, that the siblings are able to get the one who learns differently to do things that the parents can't do, because I don't know, there's just a different connection.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just their acceptance of their sibling who learns differently is different than the parents. I mean, like you said, it took you a while to accept the diagnoses and the who he is. Bailey just, this is my brother,
Right.
and I don't know how to describe it. I don't feel like I'm describing it well, but there's just that unhinged acceptance, unconditional
And it
acceptance.
was so early on when I was struggling and wanting to change him and just wanting to be normal. I would watch her and she would be like, "It's okay." And she'd be talking to him or playing, "I know you have trouble." She used to say when she was real little, "I know you have trouble." And it's like, okay, she's accepting this. I think maybe I need to try. It's just instead of change, 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 let's just do it your way because I know you have trouble. So I've learned more from her probably than most moms learn from their daughters that early on.
Yeah. It's incredible when there's a sibling involved. And that's why I would love to have her on, because
Mm.
like I said, I don't get many siblings. I've had 3 or 4. And she's still young enough that it's fresher. Most of the siblings that I have that have come on have, um, they're long adults, maybe even have had kids of their own. So, their memories of it and their perspective of it might have been changed a little bit over the year. Oh my gosh. It's time to go. It's been almost an hour already.
Thanks.
I
See
just
ya.
looked up at the time and I was like, oh, okay. And that is so much why I was looking forward to having you on. And we're going to read Lynn's comment here. The knowledge learned from Lori's book is so powerful. I've tried starting reading her book in a waiting room, and someone would ask me about the book, and before they are telling me about their story with their autistic child, I can be a listening ear, but use the knowledge I have read on Lori's blog to help connect to these parents and pass Lori's story on to maybe help them connect with other moms with autism or other children who are disabled. I'm so grateful for her story. I don't know why it cut it off.
I'm
Might have
so
hit.
grateful for Lynn. That's wonderful. I mean, she'll talk to strangers about my story. She gave away her book in the waiting room. She gave away her book.
That's amazing.
I know.
Yeah, Lynn is, I absolutely concur. Lynn is an amazing person. She has also been very supportive of me. She and I got to work together for a few years. We both worked at the same school, and she has a beautiful heart, and I'm very thankful for her as well. Um, and then Fran says, thank you for being real and vulnerable. Thank you, everyone who has participated today. Like I said, the chance for the book, you have a week to share this either on YouTube or Facebook. If you're not already a subscriber to my YouTube channel, become a subscriber on my YouTube channel. Even if you already have the book, you can do like Lynn did and just,
Really.
give it away to somebody else, because it really is impactful. Um, and I tell you what, I'm actually going to make this a double. You'll get my book and Lori's book.
Oh, wow. Bonus.
So, so make sure you share this. You either on YouTube or Facebook. You subscribe to the YouTube channel, and then all of you who have commented already, you've already got one of the steps done, and many of you are already subscribers, so that step is already done as well. It's just the sharing part. So thank you, Lori, so much for sharing. Bear with me, and everybody else. And thank you for coming back on. It was a joy to read your book. And again, I said, oh my gosh, we have to get off because our hour is almost up.
I know you're kicking me out. It's been
I
fun.
am. So Ball Hogs, 6th grade girls basketball. Love you, Lori Bell. I hope
Oh,
you
that's so
enjoy
nice.
this.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, I got to kick you out. We got to go. So
Okay.
thanks everyone
Thank
for
you.
joining today and your comments, and be sure to share to get Lori's story out there. Have a great week, everybody.